We're in one of Middlesex University's very nicely equipped photographic studios, and we're going to look at some lighting and some ways we can control it. Photographers like studios because they give us that amount of control over the light, and also they free us from constraints of weather, and they give us a fair degree of consistency over time in the controlled environment. When you first come into a studio, it can look very technical. There's lots of equipment and things going on, but the basic principle is start in the dark, add a light, move it about, control it, and then add other lights as you need them, just to control the effect you want. And that's hopefully what we'll try and demystify in a very brief way in a minute. So over the years, many famous photographers, of course, have made the studio their home, but you might like to look at someone like Irving Penn, Paolo Roversi, a great fashion photographer, and Tim Flack, whose primary concern is nature, but he's brought it out of its normal context into the studio. So we're going to do a simple lighting setup and show some of the principles of lighting. And I'm going to start with this flash. It's very controllable. It lets us choose the exposure. And of course, I've got my trusty light meter. So let's put a light in. That's going to be our first light up and just give our basic modelling and shadow on the face. So the light we can see at the moment is a modelling light. It's just the courtesy light that shows us where the flash is going to go, but studio flash is incredibly controllable. I'm going to meter it now and just check how much light's coming out, and then we'll take a shot and look. So, Will, if I give you the light meter, please, if you don't mind, just set that shutter speed, and then so we're just going to trigger the flash from the camera and get a light reading. What's that? F8. F8, okay. We should be able to see pretty much straight away what we get. So if you don't mind, Will, let's check focus, and then there. So in a second, we get the shot on the screen. So one of the first things we often do is try and reduce shadow. And but before I even start to make those shadows lighter, I just want to soften this light a little bit. So these shadows are quite hard, and that's because the light's using a narrow dish reflector. As light sources get bigger, the light gets softer. If you think on a sunny day, you have a point source of light like the sun, and then on a cloudy day, we have very large light sources with light coming from all different directions, and that's why we get softer, less defined shadows. So I don't have a cloud, but I have got a diffuser, so I'm going to use this. This is going to scatter the light a little bit. So I've just clipped that diffuser to the light quite close, so it's going to have quite a subtle effect. Let's take a shot. So, Will, if you don't mind. So we should see a difference, but a quite subtle one. If we wanted to make them a lot softer, we'd use an even bigger light source. And when you come into a photographic studio, you might see things like this. This is called a softbox. It's a diffuser, and inside there's, sorry about the noise, some reflecting material. So that's just going to spread the light a little bit more, and these come in bigger and bigger sizes to control how soft. Let's put this on and see what effect that has. So we've added that diffuser. It should give us a slightly softer light, and we've metered the light again. Let's take a shot and see what effect it has, if you don't mind, Will. Okay, so we can see straight away it spread the light a little bit more, but they're still quite dark. So our next trick is going to be, let's reflect some light into these shadows. You might have seen photographers working, say, with flash on a sunny day. What they're doing is they're filling in the shadows. Cameras see with a little more contrast than our eye, which is always adjusting. So often by putting a little bit of detail back into the shadows, we just help lift and balance the image. Let's add a reflector and see the effect. So I could use a second light and have ultimate control, but I've chosen to use a reflector. It's the simplest way, and we said we'd just try and do this with one light. So let's take a shot and see how this bounces light into the shadow side. Yeah, and straight away you can see that the light shade the light side and the dark side are a little bit more even, more balanced. It's a little bit too much for me. I feel that it's lost some of its character, so I'm going to move the reflector back, and we're just going to take that down a little. Let's try that and take a shot. And now, if we look, we should see a difference. So now we're sort of in between. We've got some detail in the shadow, and we could keep finessing this. We could keep adding lights. We can go further. We can add things like coloured gels, for example, are going to obviously be useful to add a little bit of excitement. But I think this is kind of working for me at the moment as a fairly straightforward portrait, and it shows very simply in a very short space of time how you can control lighting in a studio.